enforcing existing rules. Their job is to design, implement, and maintain these comprehensive, sustainable systems that create lasting, positive change. But we're looking for the why behind the best answer.
I really like that framing.
And usually the best answer is about fixing the root cause, not the immediate symptom.
That conflict between bureaucracy, just checking the boxes, and true governance, actually fixing the system, that seems to be the central tension here. So let's start with our first theme: strategic planning, coordination, and reporting. We jump right in with a classic challenge. The ministry has just launched a new, huge 5-year strategic plan for higher education reform. You're the senior expert. What is the most critical initial action you have to take? Do you survey customers, reorganize your office, or what?
It's a great question because the wrong answer is so tempting. A lot of people, they want to show immediate actions. They'd start an external survey or a big reorg. But the source material is crystal clear here. A high-level strategy is just, well, it's an empty promise until you translate it into a detailed operational plan. It needs actionable tasks, timelines, programs.
So internal coherence has to come first.
Absolutely. You can't ask other people to follow a map you haven't even drawn for your own team. The first action is always that breakdown, that implementation guide.
And that focus on fixing the internal process. That continues when we look at inefficiency. There's a scenario where the workflow in the ministry is clearly broken, it's causing delays. The immediate step can't be just taking over the tasks yourself.
Precisely. The goal isn't to become the hero who does everyone else's job. And, the right first step isn't even just reporting the delay up the chain.
So what is it?
It's identifying the specific procedural gaps. Is it a communication issue? Lack of authority? And then designing a concrete improvement strategy for the process. You fix the mechanism, not just the immediate failure.
And we see that exact same principle with external stakeholders. So imagine a survey shows that university presidents find the ministry's reporting rules burdensome and, frankly, not very useful.
That's a fundamental crisis of governance right there.
Yeah.
The easy bureaucratic response would be to just enforce the rules, remind them it's mandatory. But the most constructive response from a senior leader is rigorous analysis. You have to find the redundancies and then propose a streamlined, more efficient system.
It brings up that question you mentioned. Is the system serving the ministry, or is the ministry serving the system?
Exactly. If the system isn't delivering value to its users, it has to be changed.
That sets a very high bar for accountability.
Yeah.
Shifting a bit, let's talk about managing your own team. There's a scenario on empowerment. So your junior experts are hesitant to take initiative. What do you do?
Well, the most effective strategy isn't just assigning more tasks or sending them to some generic seminar.
Right, because that just addresses symptoms.
Right. The test suggests the best route is genuine dialogue, talking to them about their work, learning from that exchange, and then encouraging empowerment based on that shared knowledge. It's about building capacity through mentorship and trust. That's what reduces their risk aversion.
That's a great link from planning to people. Okay, so once you've got your plan and empowered your team, the next challenge is building institutional structures that can withstand these failures.
Exactly. Now we move from planning processes to institutional systems and governance. And this section really emphasizes standardization and, future-proofing the entire sector. Take the issue of, say, biased recruitment across different universities. We're talking about leadership selection. The solution can't be investigating individual complaints every time they pop up.
Because that's a never-ending cycle. It's just whack-a-mole.
Totally. The systemic fix, the real answer, is developing a standardized, comprehensive guideline for leadership recruitment and placement that all the institutions have to use. Standardization creates transparency.
And that standardization leads to fairness, while a good strategy leads to future-proofing. So when the ministry wants to ensure retiring leaders are replaced by well-prepared successors, the answer isn't just trying to retain current staff. The strategic approach has to be proactive. It's developing and implementing a strategy specifically to cultivate and prepare successor leaders within the universities. You have to build that bench strength internally.
And that proactive thinking is so critical when you look at equity and resources. They pose this scenario where a university in a developing region is struggling. Maybe it serves a population with unique challenges, like students from pastoralist regions, right?
The obvious but wrong answer would be like a one-time grant or firing the leadership.
Right. But the holistic approach required here is to establish a system to ensure that university gets support based on the specific needs of its students. And then you have to rigorously monitor that implementation. The support has to be tailored to the context.
That makes the solution scalable, not just a one-off action. And when we talk about growth, There's strategic internationalization. The most effective way to enhance global standing isn't just, translating the website into 6 languages.
No, not just window dressing. It's about deep collaboration, like partnerships with foreign peer universities that actually moves the needle on research and teaching.
And what about financial governance? If audit findings keep recurring year after year,
The trap is to just cut the budget or force some short-term training.
but the real intervention is fixing the root cause.
Exactly. The proactive move is to investigate and improve the fundamental financial practices causing those findings. I mean, if you keep finding leaks, you need to replace the pipes, not just keep mopping the floor.
And finally, for this section, there's a question about institutional cooperation. If one university develops a groundbreaking innovation, how do you make sure everyone benefits?
You can't just hope good ideas spread on their own. The answer is a coordination mechanism, a system specifically designed to identify, develop, and disseminate good practices so they build on each other. It has to be an intentional, structured process.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, let's transition into our next theme, leadership development and capacity building. This area is obviously critical, but the exam questions show the biggest trap is just jumping into training without any prep. This theme really hammers home the mandatory first step for any new training program, let's say for university board members. And that step is conducting a thorough needs and gap assessment. Why is that so non-negotiable?
Because without it, you're flying blind. You risk training people on things they already know, or even worse, on the wrong things entirely. Starting with writing a curriculum or fundraising is just premature. If you don't know the deficiency, you can't prescribe the cure.
And once the training is designed, the job isn't done. They emphasize that training is never set and forget. Even without complaints, old training material has to be periodically revised to align with current conditions. It's a living document.
And what's fascinating here is the focus on shifting from just technical compliance to actual behavioral change. Let's say you have leaders who understand policy perfectly, but they really struggle with soft skills.
So more regulation training is obviously not the answer.
No, of course not. The action required is to identify the specific gaps in skills, attitudes, ethics, and then provide tailored training that fills those behavioral needs. It's about prioritizing emotional intelligence over just checking a box for technical knowledge.
I appreciate that emphasis on long-term impact. The exam asks when work on a training program is actually complete. And the answer is pretty telling. It is never fully complete.
That's right. A senior expert has to evaluate the short, medium, and long-term benefits, and then provide solutions based on those findings. It's a continuous cycle. You train, you evaluate the institutional outcome 3 years later, you refine the assessment, and you train again. Completion isn't just handing out a certificate.
And just like support for universities needs to be tailored, so does training. To improve student leadership, you have to assess their specific needs, not just invite them to a session designed for university vice presidents. Context is everything.
And to tie it all back to execution, if you have a great idea for an initiative like conflict resolution centers and you need funding, the most crucial first document isn't a wish list. It's a viable, detailed project proposal. That's the foundation.
Let's move into our next section where it really tests your understanding of equity, monitoring, and accountability. These are sort of the checks and balances of good governance.
Absolutely. And when you get a serious grievance about a leadership placement, say allegations of favoritism, the first responsibility is due process. You have to investigate and organize the information to understand the facts before you take any action.
Okay, let's talk about the difference between activity and impact, which is a key measure of success here. If the ministry creates a new leadership motivation strategy, it requires active monitoring of its implementation. That's measuring the activity.
But the ultimate proof of success for that strategy, it isn't high attendance or positive surveys. The source material is clear that true success is a documented improvement in institutional performance.
In the core mission areas, right? Teaching, research, community service.
Exactly. If you train all the leaders on innovation, but 5 years later, the universities haven't published more research or improved community service, the training failed. It failed regardless of how happy their participants were. The system is judged by results, not effort.
And speaking of results, if a university develops a groundbreaking mentorship model, the expert's role is to identify that as a best practice and then work to apply and expand it to other institutions. You're scaling excellence.
And what guides all of that work? Well, they ask what the ultimate goal of these capacity building centers is, and the answer drives everything. It's to develop leaders who can exercise responsibility and accountability to improve institutional effectiveness.
We see that same systems thinking applied directly to equity. If women are severely underrepresented in leadership, the strategic response isn't just more training for the few women who are there.
No, the solution has to be structural. It requires developing and implementing a specific strategy to increase women's participation at all levels, and then actively monitoring its performance against clear targets. It has to be an intentional design change.
The same logic applies to barriers for students with disabilities. You can't just run an awareness campaign.
Right. The systemic intervention is establishing a system of procedures to ensure institutions provide support based on need, and then monitoring its implementation. It's about institutionalizing equity.
And for the senior experts themselves, their role is support and supervision. What does that actually look like?
It's defined as supportive accountability, not punitive inspection. It's a cyclical process of monitoring, providing constructive feedback for improvement, and identifying best practices. It's designed to help institutions improve, not just to sanction them.
That sets us up perfectly for our final theme: assessing critical thinking, adaptability, ethics, and holistic vision. This is really the heart of behavioral competency. Let's talk institutional politics. If new leaders struggle mostly with managing internal political dynamics, not a lack of knowledge, what do? The insightful response is to revise the curriculum to include case studies on political management. You train leaders for the reality they're in.
That strategic diagnosis is absolutely key. Consider this alarming scenario. An institution has both high staff turnover and recurring negative audit findings. These two problems are almost certainly linked.
So the immediate issue isn't just the messy books or the staff leaving.
No, the most probable underlying cause is a fundamental weakness in the institution's organization, leadership, and operational systems. Basically, the test is saying, if your staff is fleeing and your books are a mess, the real problem is the toxic culture created by bad leadership and broken systems.
And adaptability is non-negotiable. If a new leadership strategy works great in urban universities but fails consistently in rural ones, you don't just scrap the whole thing.
No. The best course of action is to use that feedback to provide targeted support and modify the implementation approach for the rural institutions while continuing the core strategy where it's working. You modify the delivery, not abandon the objective.
And securing buy-in for cross-institutional initiatives requires real skill. The expert needs to build a framework that shows exactly how these new centers will actually boost leader capacity and effectiveness. Position it as a partnership, not a mandate. Another key competency is the strategic use of data. So this means analyzing data not just for rankings, but to identify systemic challenges, find pockets of excellence to scale up, and to inform how you revise training.
And on the crucial matter of ethical responsibility, if you confront a violation like a leader reserving positions for internal candidates, the senior expert's job is clear. It's to engage with that institution's leadership to support and monitor the fair implementation of the rules. It's supportive accountability designed to fix the culture, not just expose an individual.
Finally, the ultimate measure of holistic vision. They present a scenario where a politician suggests that just a massive budget increase is the single most important factor for improving universities.
And the complete perspective is crucial here. While resources are, of course, essential, their effective use depends on a holistic system. You need skilled leadership, fair governance, continuous capacity building, and robust accountability. You can't just throw money at a broken system and expect results.
That covers a massive amount of high-level strategic thinking. To summarize the core takeaway for you, the listener, the mindset for this level of expertise relies entirely on developing systemic solutions. It's about prioritizing needs assessment, focusing relentlessly on measurable institutional impact, and balancing strong monitoring with supportive feedback. The best answers always involve designing or fixing systems, not just executing one-off tasks.
Exactly. We've seen that the highest level leadership competency is, well, it's less about policy knowledge and more about understanding human and institutional systems, how to empower people, how to design fairness, and how to identify and scale excellence. So this raises an important question. If we define success not by just adherence to rules or budgets, but by clear, measurable systemic improvement and outcomes, how would that change the way we evaluate leadership in any sector, not just higher education? What stands out to you as the biggest challenge in your own organization?
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Our source material today is, well, it's something truly unique. We have a stack of high-level competency exam questions, and these aren't for testing, rote knowledge. They're designed to assess strategic thinking, ethics, governance skills, these are custom tailored for people trying to get senior government expert and leadership roles, specifically within the Ministry of Higher Education. So think of it as the ultimate test of how you would tackle real complex policy challenges. Our mission today is pretty simple. We're taking a shortcut. By unpacking these scenarios and analyzing what the system sees as the most effective response, we can get a real sense of the mindset needed for these senior policy roles. We're going after the governing philosophy, not just the answers. Okay, let's get into it.
What's so fascinating here is that these questions, they fundamentally define what effective governance even means in the 21st century. They really highlight this crucial shift. Senior leaders, they have to stop just managing tasks or, enforcing existing rules. Their job is to design, implement, and